Why can't you be more like your sister? It wasn't a question. It was a statement. A routine. A sentence I had heard so many times, it stopped feeling like words and started feeling like truth. Growing up, there was always a clear difference between us. My sister was the one everyone admired, the one with perfect grades, perfect manners, perfect timing. Teachers praised her. Relatives adored her. My parents, they practically built their world around her achievements. And me. I was the comparison. The example of what not to be. At family gatherings, it was always the same conversation. Your sister just got top marks again. She's going to go so far in life. You should learn from her. I would sit there, smiling politely, nodding when expected, pretending it didn't sting. But every word felt like a quiet reminder that I wasn't enough. It didn't matter what I did. If I brought home good grades, they weren't as good as hers. If I tried something new, it wasn't as impressive. If I succeeded, it was luck. And if I failed, it was proof. Proof that they had been right all along. Over time, I stopped trying to compete. Not because I didn't care, but because I realized I could never win a game where the rules were already written against me. So I became quieter. Less visible. I learned to keep things to myself. My thoughts, my interests, my small victories, none of it felt worth sharing anymore. Because what was the point? It would either be dismissed or compared. You'll never measure up. My father said once, not even harshly, just matter of fact, like he was stating the weather. And somehow, that hurt more than anger ever could. My sister never said those words herself. But she didn't have to. She lived them. Every achievement of hers became another shadow I had to stand in. Not because she wanted it that way, but because that's how our parents framed it. And eventually, I let them. But what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that while they were busy measuring me against her, I had stopped measuring myself against anyone. I had started building something of my own. Quietly. Carefully. Hidden from the comparisons, from the expectations, from the constant reminder that I wasn't enough. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to prove them wrong. I was trying to prove something to myself. And one day, whether they realized it or not, they were going to see it. The more they compared me, the quieter I became. Not weaker, just quieter. Because I had learned something important. The less they knew about me, the less they could tear apart. So I stopped sharing. I stopped talking about my interests, my plans, even my small achievements. When they asked how school was, I gave short answers. When they praised my sister, I smiled and nodded. It became routine, safe, predictable, distant. But behind that silence, I was building something. It started small. Late nights in my room, long after everyone had gone to sleep. A laptop screen glowing in the dark, pages of notes scattered across my desk, ideas forming slowly, carefully. At first, it was just curiosity, something to focus on, something that was mine, no comparisons, no expectations, no one watching. And that made all the difference. While my parents celebrated my sister's visible achievements, I worked on things they couldn't see. I learned skills they didn't value, skills they wouldn't understand. Even if I explained them, I failed. A lot. But for the first time, failure didn't come with judgment or disappointment. It came with learning, growth, progress, and slowly, I got better. Months turned into years. What started as something small became something real, structured, meaningful. I built connections, quietly. I found opportunities, carefully. I created something that didn't rely on approval or recognition. Something that stood on its own. Something that was mine. At home, nothing changed. Your sister just got another award. She's doing so well. You should really think about your future. I listened, but for the first time, their words didn't sink in the same way. Because I already had a future. They just didn't know it yet. Even my sister didn't notice. Not really. She saw me as I had always been in their eyes, quiet, average, unremarkable. And I let her. Because what I was building wasn't ready to be seen. Not yet. There's a strange kind of power in being underestimated. People stop watching you closely. They stop expecting much. They stop questioning what you're doing. And in that space, you grow. I wasn't trying to outshine my sister anymore. I wasn't trying to prove my parents wrong. I wasn't even trying to be noticed. I was just becoming, quietly, steadily, and one day, without warning, everything I had been hiding was going to be seen. It happened on an ordinary afternoon. No warning, no dramatic moment. Just a simple mistake, the kind that changes everything. I had stepped out for a few hours, leaving my laptop on my desk like I always did. It wasn't unusual. I trusted that nothing in my room would be touched. Nothing had ever been touched before. But this time, my sister walked in. She wasn't supposed to be there. Later, I found out she was looking for something, charging cable, notes, something small. She didn't mean to snoop, at least, not at first. But then she saw it. The screen, open, visible, unhidden. When I came back, she was still there, sitting on my bed. Silent, staring. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air felt different, heavier, like something had shifted without permission. "What is this?" she asked finally, her voice quieter than I had ever heard it. I froze, because in that question, there was something I wasn't used to hearing from her. Curiosity. Not judgment. I stepped closer, my heart racing. "It's just something I've been working on," I said cautiously. But she didn't respond right away. She just kept looking, scrolling, reading, processing. The silence stretched, and with every passing second, I felt something I had worked so hard to protect begin to unravel. "You did all this?" she asked, almost in disbelief. I didn't answer immediately. Because the truth was, I wasn't ready for her to see it like this. Not yet. But there it was, everything I had built. Every late night. Every failure. Every small success, lying open in front of her. "You never told anyone," she said. It wasn't an accusation. It was realization. I shook my head slightly. There wasn't much point. She looked at me then, really looked at me. Not the version of me she had grown up comparing herself to. Not the version our parents dismissed so easily. But me, for who I actually was. Something changed in her expression. Slowly. Subtly. At first, it was just confusion. Then surprise. Then something else. Respect. "I didn't know," she admitted softly. And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. Because in that moment, she wasn't comparing me anymore. She wasn't judging. She wasn't measuring me against anything or anyone. She was just seeing me. After that day, things didn't go back to normal. They couldn't. Because something had shifted, not just in how my sister saw me, but in how I saw myself. For years, I had lived in the background of my own life, invisible in the eyes of the people who mattered most. But now, that invisibility was gone. Not because I had changed who I was, but because the truth could no longer be hidden. My sister didn't say much at first, but she started asking questions. Quiet ones, careful ones, about what I had built, how I had learned it, what it took. And for the first time, I answered without hesitation. Because I wasn't hiding anymore. It didn't take long for her to realize something important. What I had been doing wasn't small. It wasn't average. It wasn't something to compare against anything else. It stood on its own. And once she understood that, she changed. Not in a dramatic way. Not overnight. but in a way that mattered. And then, she told our parents. I didn't expect that part. I thought I would control when the truth came out. When people saw what I had built, how I had grown, what I had achieved in silence, but my sister, she saw it, and she refused to keep it quiet. The moment my parents found out, everything changed. At first, disbelief. Then silence. The same silence I had grown up with, but now it felt different. Because this time, it wasn't directed at me. You never said anything. My mother finally said, her voice softer than I had ever heard it. I looked at her calmly. You never asked, I replied. There was no anger in my voice. No need to prove anything. Because the truth had already done that. My father looked at the work I had built, the effort, the dedication, the years of persistence, and for the first time, he didn't have anything to say. Not because I needed his approval, but because the version of me they had always dismissed no longer existed. My sister stood beside me that day. Not as the better one, not as the standard I was supposed to follow, but as someone who finally understood. And in that moment, the comparison ended. Not because I tried to compete, but because the truth made it impossible to ignore who I had become. I didn't need to be like her. I never did. Because what I built was never meant to be measured against anyone else.